My name is Terry Lynch. I'm with Oregon Ufology. I found myself searching for a passageway one day. And that passageway leads right across the complete section of the Cascades, which I'm sitting in front of at the moment. On top of one peak. I want to make sure that everybody sees the type of things that we find in the process of research for ufology. I have located a couple that's sitting here on the top of Blind Peak. She's facing south. He's facing north.
The Middle, Cascadia Guides, alleged production, in conjunction with Alien Strand Films.
This podcast may contain listener graphic content. Listener discretion is advised. And it shall come to pass, when the children of men had multiplied, that in those days were born into the earth and the commandars, and the angels, the children of the heaven, saw and lusted after them, and said to another, Come, let us choose us wives from among the children of men, and beget us children. And they became pregnant, and they bare great giants, which height was 3,000 ells, who stood shield against all acquisitions of men. And when the men could no longer sustain them, the giants turned against them, and devoured mankind. And they began to sin against birds, beasts, and reptiles, and fish, and to devour one another's flesh, and drink the blood. Then the earth laid the curses against the lawless ones. Enoch, a righteous man, whose eyes were opened by God, saw the vision of the Holy One in the heavens, where the angels showed me, and from them I heard everything, and from them understood as I saw, but not for this generation, but for the remote one, which is for to come. Strand Podcast.
What's up, guys? This is Mike Beavers from The Theory, and you are listening to Alien Strand Podcast, the dopest UFO alien podcast out there. And if you want to find out about me, just go on YouTube and search UFOs over UFO or The Theory with Mike Beavers. Stay tuned, guys.
everybody. Welcome to this episode of Alien Strand Podcast. I'm your host, Donald Ledesma, and welcome to today's show. Was that dark or what? Yeah, I thought that would freak you out. And this is going to be a great podcast today. I'm glad you guys are sticking around and listening to Alien Strand Podcast. I hope you guys caught our last podcast, which, it was me and Terry and then a couple of live ones that we had on video. If you can, go back to our YouTube channel, click a like, subscribe, follow us on Twitter too. We're on Instagram, Facebook, everywhere. We are everywhere. And don't forget to catch our movie, The Middle, all right? Still playing on Amazon Prime, now free on Tubi TV as well. I mean, we just got added to 16 platforms, so you'll start seeing it pop up everywhere from now on. Sometimes it takes a little while for these things, but I just wanted to talk about, everything that happened. We went out and we filmed. We started filming The Middle. We got about 90% of it done, and we traveled about 4,000 miles, believe it or not, to try to get as much information as possible, that's not easy, we packed up, over $20,000 or $30,000 worth of camera equipment, and we took off all the way across the United States, basically, from Texas to Arkansas to Oklahoma we traveled all the way to Colorado Springs, back down to Pueblo, Colorado, to New Mexico, and then we shot across to Arizona, turned around, came back, right? Back to New Mexico one more time, and then straight back home to Texas. Hey, that's a lot of driving, right? But we enjoyed every single bit of it, and, we got to see some strange things happening while we were filming, These folks had a lot to get off their chest because, see, E3 is, the movie's going to be about people that have witnessed a UFO and the things that come after that. There's some people that get very traumatized by it. They end up, just kind of either getting attracted to it, or they just they don't want nothing to do with it, and it keeps on coming to them, right, over and over and over, and they can't get away from it. Some folks even, they get attacked, And unfortunately, that's a lot. A few of them that were on our, it's going to be on our movie. They're going to talk about that, And I just hope you guys have watched the first Middle movie before you can watch the second one, because the way it ended is the way this next one's going to start. Okay, that way the story is going to continue. Now, there's a lot of strange things that are happening in our skies, every day, and I've been gone, but I I've been posting, man. I just keep on posting because a lot of new things we see up in the skies, a lot of crazy things have in the clouds that are coming out more and more and more, right? I always talk about my videos that a lot of these crafts are inside of clouds, and there's a great camera. It's called a Nikon P900, and there's a P1000. If you have a chance, get yourself one of those, put it on a tripod, and point it straight up at a cloud, and I swear, you can zoom in almost to the moon. You can see the craters on the moon. It's like you're standing there, right? That's how good of a camera this is. And believe me, it captures it in 4K. Very sharp, so a lot of people are starting to catch a lot of these strange anomalies out of these clouds, and of course we post them, and we post them on ASDP, Alien Strand Disclosure Project group. Okay, if you have a chance, go look for that on Facebook. If you're interested in ufology, go check that out. We'll be glad to have you on board. If you want to be part of a representative as well, contact me, send me a message, and we can put you in as a representative for ASDP. So, and all you do in the field is just help out, get calls, and start getting video, photos, start breaking it down, and we make reports for these folks that are out there, okay? So, and we appreciate everybody that comes in on board. We just have some new people that just came on board. So, man, we're all over the place already on ASDP, we're even out of the country, UK and Australia as well, in India too. So we have some folks that came on board already. Oklahoma, I believe we just got one on board. before. We have Arkansas. We have Colorado. We have South Carolina. We have Florida. We have Oregon. We have Arizona now that just came on board. So we're starting to get representatives all over the place. And like I said, don't forget, you guys want to be a part of that? Go to asdp-ufo.com. Go check it out there, all right? This topic that I'm going to talk about today has been something that's been lingering for a little while. And I've been, just kind of, not just that I'm a busy person, but, I try to, just do as much as I can because I want to get so much disclosure out, right? But at the same time, a lot of this disclosure always brings you back. When you actually think about it, you're sitting there and you're looking at all these videos, you're looking at all this stuff that's happening, right? And you're analyzing it, and it all goes back to history. Everything, just about everything. These symbols that appear out of the ground, these crop circles, triangulation, triangles, geometric shapes, things like that. A lot of it has to do with the ancient times, right? And you really have to think about ufology that way too, and extraterrestrials, and Bigfoot, and all these things that happen. It started somewhere, right? So why not start at the very beginning? And I mean the very, very beginning, where we think this probably came from, right? And a lot of times I've talked about it before, that you have to, some people go back and they start looking into history books, right? And use this as research. And there's so many research books out there that you can actually go into, that you start digging into, the Bible, right? For one, there's one. You start right the Book of Enoch. Here we go. So we start digging deeper and deeper, and the Sumerian text, the Egyptian writings. I know the Egyptians came way after that, but this is where it all starts, where we start to decipher a lot of this language, a lot of the darkness that was happening back then that they write about, right? Because it wasn't all hunky-dory all the time. I believe that it was a lot of survival, at the time too. We had to, back then, folks had to, figure out, how to survive, how to, hopefully not to get sacrificed in some shape or form, right? Or because of some kind of belief or things that happened back in the day that we always try to put together. Where exactly did this come from, right? The Alpha, the Omega, some people call God. Some people call Buddha. Some people call, anything. And this is where it all starts. And Enoch is one of those stories that you can't find the Book of Enoch in any store, right? You have to literally you have to order it, right? Because I had to. You won't find it. And why was this book written off the way it was? Because the way it was written. Now, I read this book from the beginning to end, and you have to look at it as a researcher. Because if you've read the book of Revelation in the Bible, Hebrew Bible, it can scare the crap out of you. If you look at it as research and try to figure out, okay, where were these prophetic prophecies and images and things, where were they coming from? How did they get those? And who were they talking to get all these images and words from the very beginning? So most of the scholars, they believe that the Book of Enoch was written in Aramaic, right? Perhaps they are thinking in the earliest 3rd century BC. That's just where they found the oldest fragments of this book in the Dead Sea Scrolls, right? This is where this came from. And these were dated roughly around the 2nd century BC. Scholars call this time the Second Temple period, right? Between 500 BC through AD 770 AD, okay? And when they got the story and they started putting it together, deciphering it, because of the way it was written, they called it the Watcher story. As it was described in the book of Genesis, right? In 6:1-4. And it says there that where the sons of God came into the daughters of man, the Watchers, that's what they called them. And it's a term, and it's like a term that they used back then. And they were supposed to be divine, like the sons of God. That's who these people were. This is the way it was explained in Genesis, right? In the Bible. The way it was written, because of the way it was written, they took it out of the Bible. They kind of match some parts of Genesis and his words, but it's totally different. They kind of put an and a thee and mixed it up just a little bit, but basically has the same meaning. And he retold about the flood that was coming. Enoch, he had the elements in turn of quite consistent with the original Mesopotamian context of the book of Genesis, right? So his was a little bit more depth, more prophetic. And this book is for serious researchers, okay? This is what it's about. So if you ever dig into this book, that's exactly what it's about. And you really have to go into depth when you're reading this. Keep an open mind. Remember that. Always keep an open mind. We know Enoch is a biblical figure, right? He was prior to Noah's flood. He was the son of Jared and the father of Methuselah. He was part of the Hebrew Bible. And it says that Enoch lived to be 365 years before he was taken by God. And the text reads, Enoch walked with God, and he was no more. Then God took him. And that's in Genesis, right? So why would Enoch write about the Nephilim, giants? Because this is where we heard it from. Once you started seeing it from the very beginning, his words, he told us about the giants and the sons of men. And Enoch was actually one of the grandfathers of Noah. If you really think about it. But we always try to think about why he wrote what he wrote about the giants and where he got his visions from. And it's when you read a lot of this book, it puts your mind in a different place because you're trying to figure out what he's trying to say. The part that we always hear about in the movies or the shows or in TV about what he wrote was on chapter 6, where it says, "And it came to pass, when the children of men had multiplied, that in 2 days were born unto them beautiful and comely daughters. And the angels and children of the heaven saw and lusted after them, and said to one another, Come, let us choose us wives from among the children of men, and beget us children. And all the others together took them unto themselves as wives, and each chose one for himself. And they began to defile themselves with them. They taught them charms, enchantments, and cutting roots, and made them acquainted with plants. And they became pregnant, and they bare great giants, which height was 3,000 ells, who consumed all the acquisitions of men. And when men could no longer sustain them, the giants turned against them and devoured mankind. And they began to sin against birds, beasts, reptiles, and fish, and devour one another's flesh and drink the blood. Then the earth laid accusation against the lawless ones." And this is the part that we always hear. You never hear the end of that. You always hear how they defiled the women and they turned into giants. That's it. That's all you ever hear. But I just read you the whole section of what he says, right? So these giants turned against men, started killing them and eating them, right? These Nephilim that came to earth had children with these women. And then they had these giants, right? This is how the story begins. We always hear stories about giants and Nephilim, and they find these bones and they find these bodies, and we try to figure out where exactly they came from. And you always hear that they just say, no, well, this ain't true, it's just a folklore. And then they keep on digging up bones and bones, finding these giant footprint everywhere on Earth, right? So then you see these giant megalithic, structures that are, erected by, we don't even know if it's humans, because these blocks are so huge. We're still trying to figure out how they were able to lift all those large blocks in order to get them to the structures that they made. If you notice on our modern, wonders of the world, it's humongous. They're giant. Easter Island statues, the pyramids. Where were these and why were they made? And now they're starting to date back 12,000 years, 15,000 years, 25,000 years. Did this come from the story of Enoch or one of his stories? He talked a lot about how the sons of men became so evil that they have to be destroyed. In other words, it's almost like the Book of Noah, right? That men became so evil and the giants were evil that everything had to be destroyed. And this is how it comes out in the books, man. It's not me, it's not religious, it's not anything like that. This is what's coming out of the books that were written thousands of years ago. And they kept on mentioning in the book, the great one, the great one. And he knew that there was going to be a time where there was going to be this flood. And it was going to be one of his people, grandson, Noah, that was going to go through this. And he says, and whoever shall be condemned and destroyed from thenceforth be bound together with them at the end of generations, right? And destroy all the spirits of the reprobate and the children of the watchers, because they have wronged mankind, right? So this is what he was saying in the Book of Enoch. He knew that those floods were going to come to pass. And these were visions and things that were distilled within him, whoever he was talking to. Because apparently these giants, these Nephilim, they turned against man. And they just try to, basically, in this whole book, he's just warning mankind on what's coming and what's going to come to pass afterwards, right? There's going to be a lot of things that are going to sound repetitive as you're reading the book. But in the end, you'll get the point of exactly what he's talking about, right? You know, why he was chosen or why he did this is still up in the air, right? And, you know, whether he was trying to warn humans of what was coming, you know, and we don't know if people read this way before then, before they were found in the Dead Sea Scrolls. Possibility. You know, and who were the Nephilim? They say they're mysterious people of the Hebrew Bible who are described as large and strong. And the word Nephilim is loosely translated as giants. Some Jewish explanations interpret them as the hybrid sons of fallen angels, right? Demonic. So were these Nephilim demonic? Were they bad? Did they have bad intentions? I mean, look what they did to create themselves again, to defile women, create more of them, right? This is what it says in the books. You know, there's so many books on the Nephilim. You know, they call them the fallen ones, you know, the fallen angels. You know, they just trying to figure out exactly who this species was. You know, and we probably won't ever know, because if they did exist, and the flood came and destroyed them all, well, they were probably covered up or eaten, right? It says the Nephilim were in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came unto the daughters of men, and they bore children to them that were mighty men, that were of old, the men of renown. This is what it says in Genesis. Right? Genesis 6:4, it just tells them where they don't know if it was clear if they were the sons of God or of their offspring. In Numbers, this is a part of the Bible, where the 12 spies reported that they seen fearsome giants in Canaan. And it says, and there we saw the Nephilim, the sons of Anak. who come of the Nephilim. And we were in our own sight as grasshoppers. And so we were in their sight. So this is how huge these giants were. They felt like grasshoppers, mind you. Okay? Just imagine the size that they're putting to you here in the book of Numbers. And that's huge. Just imagine if this was happening back then, and they see these huge giants coming towards them, what they were going to do. There's another passage in there in Genesis 6:4. And it says, they lie within the warriors, the Nephilim of old, who descended to Shaul with their weapons of war. They placed their swords beneath their heads and their shields upon their bones. For the terror of the warriors was upon the land of the living. So here we have two different books, right? Written by two separate times. We have the Book of Enoch, and then we have the Bible. But they're both found inside of the Dead Sea Scrolls. How does that happen? So when Enoch wrote his book, it was carried on through generation and generation, right? Even after Noah. And they know, even today in history, that did happen. The flood did happen. Younger and driest time, period. That's what they call it. So they know there was a great flood, right? Enoch predicted it. Noah witnessed it. And then saved his text. Then they put it all together, buried it, until they were found with the Dead Sea Scrolls. You know, the Nephilim, they were almost like human divine hybrids in a sense, right? This is how they were explained in Numbers. And it says in Numbers 13 that the ancient warriors trapped in the underworld in Ezekiel, right? So were these giants, these Nephilim, were they demons of some sort? Fallen angels, what we talk about. You know, if Enoch predicted the flood, he starts predicting all these things that are going to come. You know, almost exactly like the book of Revelation in a sense. He starts talking about how people would destroy people. You know, and all he talks about is the righteous, right? Which is the people that follow him, you know, or follow God at the time. Remember, this is historical. I'm speaking to you in the historical context. You know, like, even if you think about it today, why would somebody sit there and write a book, or just write everything that was coming to them as God was speaking to them, and writing everything down over and over, even if some of it was repetitive in a sense? but warned about man, was warning us, humans, and warning us, you better be good. You need to be good people, in other words, because the bad, the wicked will be destroyed. And this is basically what this whole book is about. And it starts from the beginning to the end. It talks about the fallen angels, about everything like that. But do we see them as the NEPHILIM, right? The giants. They reference them to the offspring of Seth and Cain, right? For rebelling from God and mingling with the daughters of Cain. This is what it says on some of the Jewish text. We hear stories of back then in the day, if you remember, David and Goliath, right? So Goliath was huge. And they explained how big Goliath was and where he came from. So it says the oldest manuscripts of the Dead Sea Scrolls come from the text of Samuel from the 1st century BCE and the 1st century CE. And it said all gives height as 4 cubits and a span, which is about 6 feet and 9 inches tall, right? So you're thinking, well, that's not very tall, right? But the other text, the Masoretic text, says that he was 6 cubits and a span, which is 9 feet, 9 inches tall. We all know the story of David and Goliath, how he slayed him. They said this thing was huge. This man was huge. But this is actually the first time I hear that is only 6 feet, 9 inches tall. But in most of the textbooks, you're going to hear 9 feet, 10 feet. He was this huge, huge man, which they called a giant. We all know that the story, how it came to pass, and we always try to figure out, where did this Goliath come from? Why was he so big? But if you kind of think about how some folks now here today, they can reach up to 8 feet, 9 feet. Basketball players, they're tall, huge. But the difference between them and Goliath was Goliath was massive. His mass was huge. And we always try to piece together the NEPHILIM, the giants, the fallen angels, where it all came from. Did it come from the very beginning in the Book of Enoch? Where did his stories come from? Did he live among the Nephilim? Because in Noah's story, he talks about destroying them. So they were still around, even after he was gone. You know, and that's where you have to put together, as you're researching these books and trying to put it all together, you know, the timestamps, the dates, you're trying to figure out, okay, what happened first? What happened second? You know? And where did these stories come from? This was all in the beginning of time. You know, we always hear about the Bible and the beginning and Book of Genesis in the very beginning. People always talk about, well, how could he create Earth in 7 days? Okay. Just going to give you a little open-minded part about that just real quick. When they talk about the first day, the second day. Who's to say back then that the first day was not, I mean, why would it have been 24 hours? Why couldn't it have been 24,000 years in the first day? Second day, another 24,000 years. Third day, another 24,000 years. Fourth day, another 24,000 years. Okay? So you have to look at it this way. This is the way they spoke back then. There was no sense of time. And when you think about it, we start putting these stories together that Enoch could have lived 394 years. Another story says he lived 700 years. Even Noah. You know, and you think about how could they have lived so long, and now we barely even can live, 100 years old, if you're lucky. Well, who says that 1 year of time back then was 365 days, right? Could have been double that, could have been triple that. So this is why I always question the years back then, how they did time. And then how long was this being taken place from the beginning of time? Who says that on day 1 or day 2 or day 3 that there weren't things already here being processed and made on Earth, right? These are things you have to think about. Think about the larger picture. Don't be so close-minded and just, say, nope, that didn't happen in 1 day. Nope, that didn't happen in 2 days. No, you can't. You can't think like that, because and then you wouldn't be able to scholar right. You wouldn't be able to do your research right. But I wanted to tell you about that because, it bothers me sometimes when I see people talk about it, and I'm like, well, man, don't be so close-minded. Think about it in a larger sense, on a larger scale of time, because there was no time back then. Okay? And when man started, and, it could have came from anywhere. We could have been placed here from another planet. We could have been, made here by organisms. Could have been created. Remember, nothing is created by nothing. Just remember that. It started somewhere. And are giants real, right? So let's talk about that just for a second. So we've all started hearing the stories lately of this U.S. Special Forces that You know, they were just trying to do their mission. And there was a chief. He says there were some terrifying encounters in 2002 of the giant of Kandahar, right? Which they call a biblical cryptid. And they said that the special forces stumbled upon this creature who was a giant. And they said he was like cooking food. And just sitting there, and they came across him. Mind you, he was huge. So they said that he stood towering about maybe 13 to 18 feet tall. Had red hair, huge, massive. Said he had flaming red hair. 6 fingers on each hand. And 2 rows of teeth. They say this giant lunged at them and they had to open fire. But when he did, he had a spear in his hand. And he killed one of the service members with a spear. And they said they opened fire on him for about 30 seconds. After it was down, another team came up there with a helicopter. And they loaded the giant's corpse onto a helicopter. And then they never saw it again. But if you look online, there's a guy that's starting to talk about it. He showed his face already. Before he wouldn't show his face. Now he is. You know, a lot of people started hearing this story and they think, well, that was just a crock, right? Okay. So if this guy shows his face on camera, tells you the name of his friend that died with that spear going right through him, tells you that he sees this thing laying on these pallets, huge. It stunk of high heaven. The stench that he said that came off of this thing smelled like death. That's how bad it smelled, he says. He says, I've never seen anything this massive in my life, and they killed it, right? Where did they take it to? This is my thing. You know, we read a lot of stories online of how they have not been able to find any kind of bones, locate any large fragments of giants. I mean, we've seen some CGI stuff out there. I've seen it. I've seen a lot of Photoshop. But if you look and you Google it, just Google skeleton bones of giants found. Every single one is going to turn from you and say, nothing has ever been found. And conclusive. And then this guy's story comes out here of Kandahar, right? Why keep this story hidden? Is there more of them that they're dealing with? Or is this just one freak accident of a stray? But if there's one male, right? There's got to be a female somewhere. How how are these things going to live this long? Right? Was he the last one? Will we ever see any more of them or hear any more of them? I don't think he's the last one. And will we ever know of what's to come about the giants, the NEPHILIM, Enoch? The Bible? We try to piece everything together to have some kind of outcome of all this information of history. Right? Because history is where it all started. And we're still looking for the answers today. Some people don't stop researching to find the answers we're looking for. And I hope they don't. Because one day, I believe, we will find a book or words or something that's written as we have now that's going to match all these things together, right? Maybe at an earlier period. Because the further back you go, and the more these stories match up, there has to be some kind of truth to it. Maybe not everything, but there has to be some kind of truth to it all. So if you have a chance, go look for the Book of Enoch. You can find it there on Amazon Prime or just look for it online. It's about the best place you can get it. And get the hardcover. It'll last you longer. You want to research it yourself? Be my guest. But keep an open mind. And remember, if you're going to read it with an open mind as research as well. You can look at it in a biblical aspect of it. You can look at it as your religion aspect of it if you want. You can look at it as a research, as a student, to try to find the answers exactly of what possibly happened and what happened to Enoch and why these stories came to pass already, what he spoke of. And why didn't they put it in the Bible? Those are the questions that we have to think about before we make that ultimate decision. All right, guys. I hope you enjoyed this nice podcast on the Book of Enoch. I really enjoyed talking about the Book of Enoch. It's a little dark sometimes, right? But like I said, just keep yourself an open mind. You know, when you're reading it, when you're looking through it in a historical aspect of it, if you want to look at it that way. It'll take you a while to read it, and then there's sometimes you're going to think, well, why is he being so repetitive? And it does get repetitive through the book. But you will get through it. Just read right through it until you come to the very end. And this was, interpreted. Everything from the Dead Sea Scrolls, right? And there's 104 pages, okay? Just an FYI. It's not a very long book. I've read longer books, 250, 300 pages. This is only 104. Hey, what more can you ask for? But you have a chance, like this podcast. Please hit a thumbs up. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Go to our ASDP. They're on Twitter. So it's at ASDP Don. They're on Twitter. Follow us there. Follow us, Alien Strand Podcast. We're there on Twitter as well. Instagram. 26, 27 audio platforms. Watch the movie. 16 platforms for your viewing pleasure. Go check out the movie. Please go watch the movie. And thank you for today. Thank you for listening to this podcast today. I hope you guys got a little information out of it. I know it's a little deep. It can be a little dark sometimes, or you just remember the way I was explaining it to you. I'm explaining it to you as research. Okay, so just remember that, and I hope you guys do some research yourself on this subject. Give me some feedback on it. Hope you guys really enjoyed this content that I'm throwing out today. I will be trying to get more podcasts out to you guys. Oh, yeah, I do have another one coming up. It's going to be really dark as well, but not in the biblical sense. This is going to be sort of science and experiments and things like that. So, talking about super soldiers, right? So we're going to have that coming up here next after this podcast. If you have a chance, go to our YouTube channel. Please like and subscribe there. Watch all our videos there, man. A lot of them are live. Go to the live section. You'll see a lot of them with Terry Lynch and myself and a couple of the guys on there. I try to get as many people as possible, and I'm going to get more guests on as well, okay? If you guys know anybody, send me a shout out. Send them right to me. If they want to be on the podcast, you're more than welcome to come on the podcast with me. And we'll talk about, if you got a book, you got a movie, you got anything, just give me a holler, all right? But until then, you guys have yourselves a good day. Have yourselves a good evening. And have yourselves a good night.